Emily's life was unremarkable, a quiet routine of work and home in her cozy one-bedroom apartment on the third floor of an old brick building. The city buzzed outside, but inside her space, she felt safe, until the phone calls began. It started innocently enough. Around 10 p.m. each night her landline would ring. She'd pick up expecting a friend or a wrong number, but there was only silence punctuated by faint, deliberate breathing. After a few seconds the line would go dead. At first she dismissed it as a prank, kids maybe, or a glitch. But after a week, the calls persisted, and she unplugged the phone. That's when her cell started ringing. Unknown numbers, blocked callers, a new one each time she blocked the last. She reported it to the police, her voice trembling as she explained. The officer was sympathetic but unhelpful. "Police officer, no threats, no crime. Could be a prankster. Change your number if it keeps up." She didn't. Numbers cost money, and she wasn't ready to admit how much it rattled her. Then came the man in the hoodie. She first noticed him on her walk to the subway, a figure lingering a block behind, head down, hands in his pockets. She told herself it was nothing, just a coincidence. But he was there the next day too, and the day after that. Once, she turned to confront him, her heart pounding, but he slipped into an alley before she could close the distance. Her unease grew into paranoia. She started taking different routes, glancing over her shoulder, but he was always there, just out of reach, his face hidden by the hood. One rainy evening, Emily came home to find her apartment door slightly ajar. She froze, her keys jangling in her shaking hand. She was meticulous about locking it. She knew she'd locked it. Pushing the door open, she scanned the room. Nothing was gone. No missing TV, no empty drawers. But something was wrong. Her laptop sat open on the table, the screen glowing faintly. She hadn't left it like that. The browser history showed searches she hadn't made, how to pick a lock, best ways to stay hidden. Her stomach churned. She called the police again, but without signs of theft or forced entry, they could only file a report. "Police officer, get a camera, might catch something next time." That night, she called her friend Sarah, who lived across town. Emily asked, "Can I stay with you?" Sarah offered her couch, but Emily didn't want to impose long-term. Instead, she ordered a security camera online, paying extra for overnight shipping. When it arrived, she set it up in her living room, its lens trained on the front door. For a few days it recorded nothing but her coming and going, and she dared to hope it was over. Then, at 2:37 a.m., her phone buzzed with a notification. Motion detected. She opened the app, her breath catching as she watched the grainy footage. A figure stood in her living room, motionless, facing the camera. The hood obscured his face, but she could feel his gaze through the screen. Then the feed cut out. She dialed 911, locking herself in her bedroom as she whispered to the dispatcher. The police arrived within minutes, their flashlights sweeping the apartment, but found no one. The camera's cord dangled, unplugged. A police officer said, "Whoever it was, they're gone now. Stay somewhere else tonight." Emily crashed at her downstairs neighbor Mark's place, a kind guy in his 30s who'd always been friendly. He made her tea, listened to her story, and promised to keep an eye out. The next day she showed the police the footage. They dusted for prints but found none. Gloves, they guessed. Back at her apartment, the intrusions grew bolder. An email arrived from an untraceable account, with attachments, photos of her walking to work, buying coffee, and, one that made her skin crawl, standing in her bedroom, half-dressed, taken through the window at night. She hadn't even noticed the blinds were cracked. She showed Mark the pictures, her hands trembling. "Mark, this guy's sick. We need to beef up your security." Together they installed motion sensors and a deadbolt. She felt a flicker of hope, but it didn't last. A note appeared, taped to her door. "You can't hide from me." That night, lying in bed, she heard it. Soft footsteps pacing above her. The apartment upstairs was supposed to be vacant. The last tenant had moved out months ago. She sat up, straining to listen. Another step, then silence. She texted Mark, "I hear someone upstairs, can we check it out?" He met her in the hall, a flashlight in hand. "Let's be quick," he said. They climbed to the 4th floor where the door to the vacant unit stood locked. Mark, who'd once bragged about fixing anything, knelt and jimmied the lock with a paperclip. The door creaked open. A stale, musty smell hit them. The apartment was dark, empty, except for the corner. A mattress lay on the floor, surrounded by binoculars, a camera with a long lens, and a notebook. Emily flipped it open, her breath hitching. Pages of her life stared back. 8:15 a.m., leaves for work, blue coat. 6:42 p.m., home, carrying groceries. Then she saw it, a small hole drilled in the floor, right above her bedroom. A crude periscope sat beside it, angled downward. She gagged, realizing someone had been watching her sleep, eat, live. Mark called the police while Emily stood frozen. This time they didn't dismiss her. They collected the gear, the notebook, everything. Prints and DNA led them to Thomas Green, a drifter with a rap sheet, stalking, breaking, and entering. He'd been squatting upstairs, slipping in through a fire escape, living just feet above her for weeks, maybe months. They caught him 2 days later trying to board a bus out of town. In his bag were more photos of Emily, a map of her routines, and a sketch of her apartment's layout. Emily moved out the next week, crashing with Sarah until she found a new place across town. The nightmares lingered, every creak, every shadow made her jump. Even in her new apartment she'd catch herself staring at the ceiling, half expecting to see a hole, a lens, a pair of eyes staring back. She never returned to that building, but sometimes in the dead of night she still feels it, that unshakable sense of being watched.